not be intelligent? To be honest, I really liked coming up with this title. Not only because it's a paradox that's phrased oddly, and it raises so many different questions like, who does this young lady think she is, trying to redefine something of such high rigor? No, I like it because it allows me to call smart people idiots for about 10 minutes. But more seriously, labels like smart and intelligent play such a huge role in our daily lives, and we barely even realize it, especially as high school students. Let me give you an example. Picture this. You're sitting in a math classroom. The tension in the air is thick enough to cut through as the teacher slowly stalks around the classroom, placing papers face down in front of each student. You've seen it all too many times before. Your exams are getting handed back. Your week-long anxiety has finally reached its peak. With a deep breath, you pick the paper in front of you and flip it over. A number goes back at you. Now, if you're like any average student, you probably scored, well, average. In the education program that I'm a part of, that's like a 4 out of 7. So you look at your 4, relieved probably, if that test was particularly grueling, but then out of the corner of your eye, you see a 7, neatly etched on the top right corner of your peer's paper. Suddenly the anxiety comes flooding back in, forming a hard pit at the bottom of your gut. Compared to them, you did poorly. So you did poorly. But then, yes, you remember that this isn't the first time they've gotten a perfect grade, and it probably won't be the last. Straight A's, or straight 7s, come easy to them. They're smart, which in turn makes you an idiot. Do you see where the problem is yet? Labels. Ugly, unwarranted labels that we unknowingly plaster onto others, and even ourselves, solely based on numbers. They're like scientific classifications. People who are smart are a completely different specimen that are better adapted than anyone else. So, like the scientist I am, I'm going to outline what this specimen actually is, what it means to be smart, and why we should strive for something much better, intelligence. What does it mean to be smart? Not an easy question now that I've spelled it all out. The easiest way I find to get started is with the dictionary. Oxford says that a smart person is someone who has or shows a quick-witted intelligence. Do you see it? It popped up so fervently to me that it literally motivated me to write this entire speech. Has or shows. Weird, isn't it? Those are two completely different things. Having intellect suggests that people might not always see it. You know your stuff, but you don't necessarily flaunt it. Like that kid in your chemistry class who's shy and sweet and sleep-deprived, but gets perfect grades so discreetly, you barely even realize it. Showing intelligence, on the other hand, implies that there might not actually be anything beneath the surface. You memorize the entire periodic table? Great, you're smart. Here's your crown, here's your medal, and a cookie for good measure. You and Einstein must have connections. See what I mean? Different things. The very fact that the dictionary has these two different concepts jammed into the same definition shows how we've been confusing them instead of viewing them as we should, as separate. It says that people either show intellect or they have it. And that is how I tell the difference between being smart and being intelligent. Smart as a word is associated with appearance. You want to be seen as possessing intellect even if you don't. And that creates a barrier between the smart people, those who possess this natural gift of intellect, and the not smart people, those who didn't get as lucky. Intelligence, on the other hand, is the ability to acquire new knowledge. What makes you quick-witted, sharp. But it's not something you're simply born with, it's a skill that must be cultivated over time, and it's what forms the basis of the smart stereotype beneath the surface. It requires focus, hard work, and understanding of self to be able to achieve. But it is achievable by everyone, unlike being smart. And that is where the problem is. I can't succeed because I am not smart. People whose grades don't yield up to what they desire, perfection, develop a mindset that their level of intellect, to put it that way, is something beyond what they can control, something deeply embedded within them. Something that makes them lesser than the kinds of smart people. The label breeds status symbols. And what you end up with is a generation of kids who fail to reach their potential because they feel like they don't have one. So what's the deal with this whole, if I'm not born smart, I will never be smart mentality? Well, in psychology, that's actually a thing referred to as entity theory, when students have an entity view. I'm warning you now, it sounds a lot cooler than it actually is. A recent study came out in 2018, led by researcher Heyman Lee. It looked at the relationship between students with an entity view and levels of cortisol after receiving a bad grade. Now, you've probably all heard of cortisol by now. It's a steroid hormone, and it's produced by adrenal glands, and when it's released into the bloodstream, it can increase glucose metabolism, it can decrease inflammation, control blood pressure, or everyone's favorite, control how the body responds to stress. Hence why many refer to it as the stress hormone. As expected, cortisol levels rose after a student experienced an academic setback. For most students, these levels returned back to their normal state after a day or two. But for other students, these levels remained high. Now, what makes a difference between these two students? Carol Dweck, a psychology professor at Stanford University, illustrates this in a way I can only describe as perfect. One student has an incremental view. They have a growth mindset. As described by the website Learning Theories, it's when students treat intelligence as malleable, fluid, and changeable. These students see satisfaction in the process of learning and often see ways to get better. They do not focus on what the outcome will say about them, but instead on what they can attain from taking part in the venture. The other type of student is an entity theorist. They have a fixed mindset. It's when students, and I quote from Learning Theories again, treat intelligence as fixed and stable. They have a high desire to prove themselves, to be seen as smart, and to avoid looking unintelligent. Do you see how the whole has or shows ordeal comes into play again? Entity theorists find it easy to give up, thinking that their failure is due to a natural lack of intellect. They'll go to extreme extents to prevent themselves from challenging themselves, hint, procrastination, because their entity view acts as a way to excuse themselves from derailing themselves from the path of success. What's the point in trying if you're just going to fail anyways, right? That's why it was found in Hanley's study that students with an entity view remain stressed for longer, because the very thought of being stuck with this label that they can't be successful because they're not smart stress them out. But the problem of labels doesn't only affect students that see themselves as not smart. It also affects students who prosper academically. In her book, Mindset, Carol Dweck states, "I've seen so many people with this one consuming goal of proving themselves. Every situation is a call for a proof of their intelligence, of their character, of their personality. Every situation is evaluated. Will I look smart or dumb? Will I succeed or fail? Will I be accepted or rejected? Will I feel like a winner or will I feel like a loser?" That affects the smart kids too. You see, the label smart puts a sort of pressure on themselves to live up to the stereotype, to meet everyone's expectations, to be perfect. To an entity theorist, to succeed is to be naturally gifted, but that's never actually been the case. I myself can confirm it. Success is something that comes with hard work and focus and effort, a ton of it. And many students fail to realize this because of their misconception of what it takes to be successful. People don't just magically succeed because their brains are specifically engineered to do so, unlike what an entity theorist believes. In summary, what we have is a problem of labels, numbers, and mindsets. None of which are easy to get rid of, but with the right strategy, they can be changed. Firstly, we need to stop using labels as an excuse for our shortcomings. You are the one that gets to decide whether or not you're intelligent. Don't let a word define it for you. Secondly, we need to stop beating ourselves up over a couple of numbers. Grades aren't even a worthy determinant of your intelligence. Just like being a poor test taker doesn't make you an imbecile. And even if the high marks are what you're looking for, 1 or 2 failed pop quizzes isn't going to demolish your entire future. There's a big difference between a hole and a hurdle. One completely devastates the race, whereas the other one is just a mild obstacle that becomes easier to overcome with time if you practice, focus, and just keep running. And finally, we need to start seeing labels, or we need to start seeing failures as lessons, where we assess the point of error, evaluate the solution, and take time to understand how our mind works. That is the essence of the growth mindset. Understanding that there's always room to get better if you understand how your mind works. It's time to idolize good work over good grades. And so I'm asking you, are you going to be an entity theorist and merely wish you were smart? Or are you going to be an incremental theorist and strive to be intelligent? Don't study smart, study intelligently. And don't let something as weightless as a name tag be the anchor to downplay your achievements or dampen your success. Thank you.